Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ryan, and we're gonna do a video. It's gonna be so sick. So this video, I've been debating. So I was thinking about doing like a decade in review, or doing 2019 recap. For me personally, like what I've been going through. So I decided to do like a fusion video. Um, I'll touch on some things that happened to me in the last decade. For me personally, I was born in '89, so I was literally 20 years old and to 30 years old. Doesn't get any better than that. Juicy content. So there's like a lot of things to talk about. Um, so I'll start from the beginning. 2010 was actually not too bad. My I was caretaking for my grandmother. Um, she had a really bad stroke. A couple years prior to that, actually, they left her completely paralyzed on her right side. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can kind of relate to this. Nothing can really prepare you for having to caretake for somebody as a full time caretaker. I had to do that for 8 years of my life. Um, it wasn't easy. It was actually really hard. Um, but my grandma raised me, and I wouldn't take back a second of that. I was very, very fortunate to be able to be that person to be there for her when she needed it the most. And, you know, I miss her every day. And if I could bring her back and wipe her butt one more time, I would. So that was kind of the beginning of my 2010s. It was leading up to her passing away. During that, I met a boyfriend, and I'm going to do my best here not to name names out of respect for these people, because we're going to talk about a few people right now. But I met a boyfriend who ended up moving in with me at my grandmother's house, and my dad was there too. Um, that's a whole different topic. Um, and this was the first relationship that I ever entered in where I was cheated on and I was physically abused and I was almost raped. Dark stuff. I know, this is dark. Um, and I'm sorry to get so dark all of a sudden. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the beginning of the 2010s for me that were not easy. Um, Granted, like my musical career was great. Like I was like, and continue to do very well in that. But my personal life, I feel like just like, woohoo! It's been a bit of a challenge. Um, but yeah, so like he moved in. Um, Things seemed to be going okay. Then I found out he was cheating on me. I confronted him. He got all messed up on drugs and alcohol, tried to rape me, and then proceeded to beat the living crap out of me. While my disabled grandmother was sitting on the couch in the living room, telling him to stay away. And I had to hit the panic button because he pulled the phone lines out of my home. And like, so that was like weird. It's not something you can ever prepare for. Like, when people are on drugs and they're on alcohol, um, they're unpredictable. And I don't think that this person, I don't feel like that is a fair judgment of who they are as a person. I feel that they were inebriated and just making bad decisions. Um, I'm not making excuses for this person. Um, but yeah. So over to that, my grandma passes away. Um, and during that whole thing, Um, my dad just completely checked out on me. Um, I had to go every day um, to physical therapy because my grandma ended up having to go to a um a rehabilitational center because there was a couple scares. And I had to go there every day, and I had to help try to make her walk, even though I told the people there that like she couldn't walk. Like, she had already been disabled at this point, like not walking, immobilized, for close to 7 years. Um, and then it was like a 2 month happened like that, where she started having these episodes where she was like spacing out, where like I'm talking to her and she just wasn't there. And so the day came where she was going to come home from rehab, and I told her that I wanted the doctor to see her before she came home because I was concerned about her spacing out. And she had a heart attack. How do you plan for that? Like, that was hard. So I ended up having to call 911 at the rehabilitational center and having her transported to the hospital. And I guess while she had this heart attack, she shot blood clots into her legs, and her legs were dying. And so the last cognitive conversation I ever had with my grandmother was if she wanted me to amputate her leg so she could stay around. Because the doctor told me and her that it possibly wouldn't happen to her other leg and she could go home. And my grandmother looked at me and she said, I want to do everything I can to keep you around, or I'm sorry, so she could stay around. Because she just wanted to be there for me. And my dad was nowhere to be found. Big surprise. And so we signed the paperwork, and she went to surgery. And when she came back out, she was missing her leg. And then the doctors told me that the same thing was happening to her other leg. And I never had a conversation with my grandmother again because she was so whoop-de-woo on like the good stuff, and I made the executive decision at that point to, for lack of a better term, put my grandma down. I just didn't want her to be hurting anymore, and like I knew the quality of life was going to be there. So yeah. So that happened. And that was hard. My dad just totally checked out during that time after my grandmother died. He went to Laughlin for like a month and a half, which was great and bad. When he left, I was able to clean the house and make it beautiful and spotless. Like, so nice. And, have people over and just really enjoy the beautiful home that she made for us. Little did I know that the whole time my dad was spending all of her money. He spent $25,000 in Laughlin while he was gone of her money, which was the mortgage. So that sucked. When he came back, I was put in a position where I didn't really what do you do? I was put in a position where I had to like make money to save the house. So decisions were made, and I did what I had to do to try to keep the house afloat. Well, he did whatever he did. So nothing really changed at that point. So I was gifted the opportunity to move to the East Coast. Um, I believe this was in 2015, so we're half a decade in now. In 2015 or 16, no, I think it was like 15, end of 15 into 16. So I moved to the East Coast of Jersey City. So I did that. And this was with another lover that, that I was very invested in, that I deeply cared for, who was also in a committed relationship for the better part of a decade. They were polyamorous, and I cared for them both. Um, and I didn't realize that they weren't okay. There's a lot of things that, were not told to me. Um, Upon moving out there, even upon me pursuing this person, um, that made the entire experience so rough. When I moved out there, he broke up with his primary partner of the better of a decade. I was there, weird, and then he pursued somebody else and kicked me out, essentially. So I was in a new city. I didn't have much. I barely had a job. I moved in with a Satanist. Whoa, come on, decade. Like, what? Yeah, so I moved in with a Satanist. He is a fully published author. A very egocentric, narcissistic kind of guy. That was by proxy friends with the guy that I was seeing before. It was just a very weird situation, like a new city, new place. I don't have the support system that I thought I was gonna have. And you're a Satanist, and everything's dark and weird in my house. Like, everything in the house was dark and like just dark. And my room was like bright yellow and happy faces and rainbows. And so, like, it was really weird for people to come over because nobody wanted to come over because the whole house was satanic. And come to find out that, he was just being a very, like, conniving person, talking to my ex, if you want to call him that. So anyways, here comes the good vibes. Woohoo! We love good vibes. I ended up moving out while he went on a trip to Boston. I didn't sign a lease at that time, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So yeah, I just like moved all my things out and moved to a new place in the same city, in Jersey City. With now one of my best buddies, one of my best friends. His name's Steve, who's my old roommate. And so I moved in with him. I found him on Craigslist, of all places. And just like a really good person. I mean, great. And I had found a new job, working for a mom and pop pet supply company that really just embraced me, loved me, like knew my schedule, knew I did music, gave me all the time off that I needed. I worked a schedule that I really, really, really enjoyed. Um, and it was really, really good. Like I was kind of just like finally like doing me, doing what I needed to do. Um, for probably about like a year and a half after Mr. Satan. um and then I found my ex. My most recent one. Um this is where things get interesting. um I like I said in my last video, like I've had a problem with alcohol abuse. and binge drinking and stuff like that. So I'll just leave. I'm setting this up. So when I first started talking to my now ex boyfriend, I was completely sober. I was, gosh, I was like almost, I was over a year sober off of alcohol. I hadn't touched it. And he lived in Philadelphia, which is where I live now. Let's see where this is going. So, funny story. The first night I ever met him, I took the Amtrak out here, and he took me to an absolute vodka party. After knowing I didn't drink alcohol at all. Retrospect, probably not a good starting point, but I let it slide. I was like, alright, most people drink. I don't know. But anyways, first year was great. I would travel here and he would travel there and vice versa. We traveled all over the United States, went to San Francisco, had a good time. Um, there was a couple like not super nice things that he did to me. I'm gonna make it. I just want to preface this. I'm gonna make a totally different video about like my last relationship. I don't want to get too into too many juicy details about that because that's an entirely different video that definitely deserves a lot of its own time. So I'm gonna exclude a couple things because I'm just trying to do my decade in a recap. But yeah, so like the first year was great. Second year was really rough. My dad, who I hadn't spoken to after I had moved to the East Coast, not for lack of trying, he just didn't want anything to do with me because he thought that I completely abandoned him. When after and there was only so much I could do. I had to go live my own life. I had lived in the same house my whole life. I done everything I could my whole life, like in that home, including taking care of my grandma. I was damned if I was gonna sit there and have to like baby him. I get a call from the coroner in Los Angeles, and they have his body. And I couldn't believe it. I remember getting the phone call. I was outside my old roommate's restaurant, and I just fell on my knees and started crying. I was in hysterics. I just couldn't believe it. And that was the beginning of, in my heart, that was the beginning of the end of my last relationship. Because I couldn't handle what was happening, and I started binge drinking. And he didn't know that side of me, so it was hard for him to be there for me because it was a person that he didn't know. And it was a person that I was very unfamiliar with at that point because I hadn't been that person in so long. So the second year of the relationship was really rough. I even went as far as to leave the country. I went to Asia for like a month. I went to Thailand, Cambodia, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Japan. And then like I met him finally with my family at the end of that year for Thanksgiving and Christmas or something like that. And things were rocky then because I was still such a mess. Pro tip: going to a different country while you're emotionally compromised doesn't fix your problems. You know what I mean? So we broke up, and then we got back together into 2019, and I relocated. I left my friends, I left my job, I left everything to move to Philadelphia to start this life with him because I thought that, okay, like I'll get it all together and stuff, and didn't quite work out because I'm sitting in this house by myself recording this video right now, and it's going to be 2020 in a couple hours. Um, guys, this last decade was rough. I'm trying to find a bright side. I did a lot of stuff musically. I released a lot of stuff on like physical CDs and like, I played a lot of different shows and stuff. But like that's like my professional life, and so like for my personal life, it's just been a lot of tragedy, a lot of tragedy. It's just been hard, and I'm really hoping this new decade. I'm just really hoping that this new decade will bring, like a splish splash of just like some good vibes and like something that, that I'm really longing for. I lost my best friend. I didn't even talk about that. That's another video I need to talk about. My best friend of 25 years, hung himself during my relationship with my ex, which was also very, gosh, lots of stuff happened. Lots of loss and tragedy. And I wasn't trying to make this video to be like, whoa, but like, no, like 2010s were not nice to me. It was just like a roller coaster of just like, bam, 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 bam. Like, and like I'll have like this blip, like the first year of my last relationship, which was great. Top tier relationship. And then not so great. So that's my decade in review for me personally. I feel like after all of that, it can only get better. I hope, I'm making the steps that I need to. I'm not binge drinking anymore. I go to the gym every day. I live my life as honest as possible, and I just need to catch a break, you know what I mean? And I think this whole world does, because everything is so crazy right now. It's just insane. So, here's to us. If you had a bad decade, chin up, put a smile on, and just keep persevering, and don't give up. Life will just, if there's anything I've learned, not even just this last decade, but in this lifetime, life is always going to put things in your way, and it's always going to smack you in the face and be like, you better blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be a lesson to be learned, and don't ignore those lessons. Don't ignore them. Listen to them and listen to your gut, your heart, not just listen to all of this. If you get a feeling, follow it, because your intuition, it's usually 9 times out of 10 it's telling you something that you need to listen to. So I hope you all have beautiful 2020s, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, guys. All right, bye.